Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week 4. It's hard to believe that we're at week 4 already, but here we are. Each week, I try to share something with you that is one more tool that you can put into your leadership kit. Whether you are MBA or MASL, you are in a position of power and influence. That's why you have a master's degree, getting a master's degree, because you're going to be in those roles. And once you graduate, maybe not even once you graduate, as you're going through this journey, you will have opportunities in front of you that will put you in much different positions of power and influence. And because of that, you have the ability to change things that are happening in the workforce and with diverse work teams. One of them, as we talk about in the video that I had sent over to you, is how to ally in the workplace. And part of that is also, how do you become the voice for also those who are underrepresented? When they're underrepresented, the ideas sometimes are not conveyed, whether it is a woman's idea versus a man's, whether it is a question of racial inequality, whether it is somebody who's a senior citizen, and so you're working in an IT company, and of course they're very biased to youth, and so the millennials do not want to listen to the senior citizen who has years of experience. How do we become the voice and advocate for those who are underrepresented? And so the video is a great way to kind of talk about that and discuss that. You're also going to have a project this week in week 4 that is your final project. I think sometimes we think it is bigger than it is. The final project is going to be a one-page document that is this statement, this inclusive, changing the workforce mission and or vision. And in a position of power or influence, you have the ability to persuade leadership to listen to this. So this is a project where you take to your leadership, once completed, and attempt to influence change in the workplace. That's what we do at Bethel, right? We learn from each other, teach, coach each other, influence each other, and change each other's mindset in a way that we take this new information that we've learned, the ideas that we maybe have already had, and how we can make a contribution to the workforce in terms of change. And that's what this final project is going to be. We make it applicable, right? You take this learning and you apply it immediately in the workplace. At Bethel, that's what we do. And you're able to take this final project and apply it immediately in the workforce to hopefully change where you work, to change the environment, to change the culture, to change the organizational values in a way that the workplace becomes more inclusive so that there's competitive advantage, right, through creativity and innovation. So that's the first part I wanted to share with you. The second piece is I try to hopefully give you some of those tools for your toolkit. And what I'd like to share this week comes from an article that talks about how different cultures resolve conflict. We talk so much about how different cultures resolve conflict. And it can even be from the perspective of how does somebody who is 62 resolve conflict differently than maybe somebody who's 22. Let me give you a good example, and then we'll jump into the article. Think about the way that kids have grown up today. The kids right now have never known, the ones who are in middle school and high school right now, they've never known a time where there wasn't that kind of technology. For somebody like me, who is a baby boomer, I didn't have any of that technology. Our phones were wired to the wall. I mean, I remember how excited I was when I first had a bag in the car that actually had like the big, telephone handle that you would pull up, and it had a little cord that went to the bag. And I was so excited. That was our first cellular phone. So I'm used to having face-to-face conversation. I'm used to getting on the telephone when email isn't working. But some of the younger counterparts that I work with who are in the early 20s, even maybe early 30s, like to resolve a lot of things over email. And that's just not my preference. But I also sense that I make them feel uncomfortable when I want to get on the phone and talk it through. But it's a preference based on my values, based on my cultural values. And so how do we work through these complexities? And we talk so much about it because that's what your role entails, is helping project teams, business teams, international teams, local teams at Target, 3M, helping understand what is the underlying problem. Why is there resistance? Why are these people not getting along? Why are they not working together? And resolving it so that you can get to the end state, which is the accomplished goal, the accomplished project, etc. So you need to know these things and understand them so you can make sense of them and help fix it. So the article I want to share with you today is actually by Gomez and Taylor. It's Cultural Differences in Conflict Resolution Strategies, a U.S. and Mexico comparison. We just have to be comparing to Mexico. But I would often wonder why my counterparts in Mexico ignored me, because I had a very direct style in trying to resolve conflict, and they had a very indirect style of resolving conflict. I had a competitive view. They had a collective, cooperative view. And so sometimes they would just ignore me. They would ignore the subject, and I'm like, why are they not wanting to resolve this conflict? Why can't we talk about this? But they were ignoring it to preserve the relationship, and I didn't understand. So the United States has a legal system that's based on European values. Many other cultures have different values. So we're one of the few cultures that has individualistic values, right? And very direct values. Most have collectivism and a very indirect style. So this leads to preferences also for how we like to solve conflict. So these are the different types. There's 7 different conflict resolution methods. There's using social influence. There is ignoring the situation, giving in, persuasion, negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. The ones that I want to talk about specifically are the use of social influence, where we use those around us to put pressure on or influence others, or we ignore the situation. The other one is where we try to negotiate and mediate, and that's where most of us fall in the United States. Collectivism falls mostly in either ignoring the situation or trying to influence it through social relationships. So if you get a chance, look up some of these articles and try to research on the differences so that you understand and can make sense of someone's behavior when they are acting a certain way, understand what they're trying to accomplish, and be able to help navigate that, help the team navigate it to get to the other side. So let's say you have somebody ignoring at the table. You know then that there's a problem here. They're ignoring it because there's a conflict and they want to make sure that there's harmony and that the relationship is preserved. So now I ask you, how do you resolve that? What strategies can you use then to understand that we need to talk more about mutually beneficial outcomes? The belief that we're all here at the table for cooperative outcomes, beneficial outcomes for all, to get your counterparts talking. And once they start talking, then you're able to understand a little bit more about what they need and able to help resolve that to get to the team to the same place. It's a lot of information that I've just thrown at you, but I hope that you can take this course and take these strategies in order to implement them and apply them immediately in the workforce. I look forward to looking at your final projects for week 4. I look forward to eventually looking at the case study analysis. Have a great week.